All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name's Natasha Whetzel. I'm the Stewardship Program Manager with the Nature Conservancy in Delaware. So for our next topic, we're going to be talking about prescribed fire management 101, so a high-level overview. Quickly, just a little bit about me. I've been working with the Nature Conservancy for going on 11 years between Delaware and North Carolina, and I've been involved in prescribed fire and wildland fire for going on 12 years. I've been fortunate to be able to work in a lot of different states with a lot of different folks and different styles. So again, I'll be presenting a high-level overview of the planning and preparations for implementing a burn, as well as the operational components. All right. So to start off, what is prescribed fire? Quick definition. Prescribed fire is a scientifically based process of planning and applying fire to a defined area under specific environmental conditions to achieve a desired ecological outcome. Prescribed, controlled, and planned burns all describe the same process. Some of the reasons we use fire is for regeneration of species, say like oak or pine, promote your herbaceous communities, invasive species control, also to reduce wildfire risk. We develop a prescription to meet these objectives. The prescription is a set of conditions that considers the safety of the public, the fire staff, the weather, and the probability of meeting burn objectives. So before we really start to dig in, I do want to mention that before if you want to burn on your property, before you do anything, it's very important to contact your forestry or natural resource management agencies, who are your prescribed fire agencies, to learn about your state or local area's laws and regulations. It's different between all states, even depending on counties, and it's all different between all the states on Delmarva. Okay, so on to planning and preparations. Most of prescribed fire is all about planning and preparations. Taking the time for good planning and preparations is key for implementing a safe and successful burn. And this is why we have prescribed burn plans and why they're so important. So a prescribed burn plan is a document that helps the burn manager ensure a safe and effective prescribed burn. The burn plan identifies burn objectives and provides procedures to accomplish them safely. There are a lot of different types of burn plan templates out there. Different states, agencies, organizations, we use different kinds, and many of those would be available to you from state agencies. I've highlighted 10 burn plan elements here that I believe are some of the most important ones to capture within your burn plan. So maybe the first and obvious one is the location of where you're burning. So you're going to want to include GPS coordinates. If you have a physical address, great. Parcel number. The purpose and your objectives. So this is where you describe why you were burning and what you hope to accomplish. It's always good to use SMART objectives. Those are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So try and frame your objectives to meet that. Description of your burn area. So how many acres are you burning? What kind of species do you have growing in your unit? And also, what kind of fire breaks do you have around your unit? Pre-burn considerations. So what are some of your permit needs? Again, this is different in every state. What sort of burn unit prep is needed? And do you need to distribute public notices? For resources and equipment, this is gathering how many personnel you need, so your crew, and then your equipment. So how many drip torches do you need? How many UTVs do you need? How many engines? What sort of hand tools need to be on hand? Your radios, your weather and fuels. What sort of weather requirements do you need to meet your objectives? What are the fuels? Do you have a timber understory? Is it an herbaceous community? Short, tall grass, slash? Be thinking about some of those things. And then you want to be thinking about your smoke sensitive areas and your wind directions. How dry do you want your fuels to really be to meet your objectives? Moving on to organization operations. This is thinking about how are you going to have your personnel and your personnel and your equipment organized on the burn. Notifications, very important. You want to make sure that you do your required pre-burn notifications, your day of burn notifications, notifying, for instance, forestry or county fire board. Again, different based on where you are. And then attachments to your burn plan. It's good to have your maps that you can hand out, a medical plan, even a smoke management map in there is good. Regarding when to burn, on Delmarva, we are typically burning in the fall and spring, really generally anywhere from October to December, and then February to May is when our windows are really open. And that really comes down to when our fuels are available. So if you have a day, anytime, where you are in prescription and you think you can meet your objectives and resources are available, I suggest you take advantage of that, because you never know when the next time is going to be that those resources are going to be able to help you on a good burn day. All right, so continuing with planning and preparations. I want to say you generally want to give yourself about a year to really plan a burn. You know, you're going to want time to evaluate your site. You need to write the burn plan. You need to get your unit ready, and you want to provide yourself ample time to address any issues that arise. So I tried to break down like a general timeline of items that you want to make sure are being addressed as you approach your burn window. So it's always good to let your neighbors know. Know ahead of time when you're planning to burn, so send out letters or public notices. Let them know why you're burning and give them your contact information so they can reach out to you with any questions or concerns. You want to make sure you're submitting your permit application in enough time to get it back. In some areas, you know, they require 30 days. So again, different everywhere. Let's see. And then let's go over to 1 to 2 weeks out. You're going to want to start making sure that your burn units are fire ready, or that they're going to be pretty close to be. I'm a big proponent of thorough prep. Quality and thorough prep is you're going to thank yourself on burn day. And keeping it in the box. So for prep, the kind of things you're going to be doing is going around and installing or cleaning up your fire breaks, going around the unit, addressing concerns. You know, are there snags, dead trees along the edge that you either need to take down or prep around? Think about things that could affect the line, cross the line, but also crew safety as well. And then once we get to this period, you know, 1 to 2 weeks out before your burn window, you might want to start monitoring that weather forecast. Checking in, when's the last time you got rain? Paying attention to those things. Once you get about a week out from your anticipated burn day, you're going to want to start notifying your resources, reaching out, gauging their availability. They might also be looking at the same time to burn as well. Again, continue to monitor your weather forecast. And then once you get to the day before, things are looking good. Again, just continuously monitoring that weather forecast. It's always changing. You need to call up all your resources, confirm that they're still available to help you tomorrow. When's the meet time? Where are you meeting? Make sure you have your burn permit in hand and start printing off maps, getting ready for the next day. So quickly, like on smoke management, some smoke management considerations. When you're planning a burn, you need to be considering how much smoke you're going to be making and where it's going to be going. Safety concerns related to smoke or visibility issues, especially on roadways, can also trigger health issues. So think about, you know, schools, hospitals, housing developments. Pay attention to where that smoke is going. And all of that information and details on smoke sensitive areas should be within your burn plan. Personal protective equipment. So this is important for your safety and the safety of others. There are many hazards and risks associated with prescribed burning. The obvious one probably being burning yourself or potentially somebody else. But there's also other things like widow makers, you know, dead branches hanging in trees when you're walking around, tripping hazards. So some of the PPE we like to see folks have on a burn is Nomex shirt and pants. This is our fire resistant clothing, our yellows and our greens that we see worn a lot. A hard hat, eye protection, leather gloves and boots, a fire shelter with a pack, your water bottles, and then if you're going to be working around pumps or engines, you want to make sure you have some ear protection handy as well. And a couple other things you're seeing. Weather kit, those are good to have. You don't need to carry them around with you all the time. And then the drip torch for lighting. Equipment is a critical part of executing a controlled burn in a safe and effective way. Drip torches are the most commonly used tool. If I can up here. That's a mix of diesel and gas for ignition. Engines are the crew's mobile water source. They can deliver water where it's needed very quickly. Many crews utilize UTVs because these can get into areas that some of the larger engines can't. For engines, this one right here, that one probably holds about 200 to 300 gallons of water. And then your UTVs you see here probably hold about 50 to 75 gallons of water. Hand tools are important. I always consider that part of your PPE to have a hand tool with you. You can also have portable pumps set up. Here we have a bladder bag, if folks have heard of these. This holds a few gallons of water in a backpack pump, so if you can't get anywhere with an engine or anything else, you can bring that out there and spray water. Some other things we use out there are kestrels. So this little gadget up here, and this tells us things like what our wind is, what our relative humidities are, and our fine dead fuel moistures, and all the good things we need to know for our weather and fire. Some roles and responsibilities that you'll find on a burn. So it'll be mostly full of crew members. Crew members serve on a crew under squad boss. Then you have your squad boss. The squad boss leads a small crew of crew and equipment, and they manage ignitions and holding on their control line. Then you have the firing boss. The firing boss leads ignitions and operations and coordinates with the squad bosses. And then the burn boss is really the one standing back. They're not actively doing the work, and they need to ensure that all the prescribed fire plan objectives are being met before, during, and after a burn, or specifications are being met before, during, and after. All right, so we're getting to burn day. This is the morning of burn day. That's typically a pretty early morning. I know for me, the first thing I'm doing is waking up around 4:30 or 5 a.m. and I'm walking over to my computer and I'm pulling up the weather forecast to see if we're still in prescription. Something you can do is submit a National Weather Service spot weather forecast. This is actually available to anybody. You can even go on there and see other spot weather forecasts that have been put in for other prescribed fires around the area if you're curious. It takes only about 10 minutes to get. So I'll wake up in the morning, submit it, look at my hourly weather forecast, and about 10 minutes later, I have my spot forecast in. Again, you gotta need to make sure if it's burn day, you want to have that burn permit in hand and make your required notifications. Then once you're on site, it's always smart to do a morning recon around your unit, see if anything changed, you know, the night before, did something fall across the line that needs to be addressed before you get started? And then having someone take an on-site weather, so you know specifically what the weather is doing on site that morning. And then once you've confirmed your personnel and equipment are on site and operational, you're going to want to start up a crew briefing. So at the crew briefing, the burn boss will discuss the plan for the day, the crew assignments, the weather forecast, hazards, and then following the briefing, crews will break out into their assignments and meet the test fire location. The test fire is ignited in a representative location where the fire can be easily controlled. And the purpose is to verify that the prescribed fire behavior will meet objectives and to verify the predicted smoke dispersion. So here I'm going to try and take you through the on-the-ground operations of a prescribed burn the best I can. And I'm going to be referring to this picture here while doing so. So first, let's look at what we have. We see we have a nice square unit. We have a stream to the west. We have a wide drivable road to the north. And then we have trails for our southern and eastern fire breaks. Got an open unit, sparse trees, herbaceous understory. And weather says we're in prescription, so we're looking forward to a good burn day. So for a typical scenario, the ignition will begin with the test fire, again, in those representative fuels downwind where it could be easily extinguished. So on this burn, you're probably going to have it somewhere around in here with that wind direction. If the results of the test fire are acceptable, each squad will proceed with building black line down their line. So one squad, if we were starting here in the middle, one squad would start moving north and the other squad would start moving south, building that black downwind. And then those igniters are going to be followed up by holding resources, so a UTV or engine as well. So when sufficient black line is constructed along the downwind side of the unit, the firing boss was then going to start coordinating with each squad boss on when they continue bringing fire down their line. And then that firing boss is probably going to pull in some igniters to help do some interior ignitions for burning out the interior portion of the unit. And during this entire time, there needs to be communications consistently happening between the squad boss and the firing boss. So, you know, everyone knows where folks are, what's going on, everyone's accounted for. Sorry about that. All right. The burn boss is there. Let's see, I put it over here. Oh, wrong one. The burn boss hanging out over here. We probably have our FEMO, so the person doing weather, potentially a lookout over there as well. Okay, so the burn boss is there to oversee everything and make sure objectives are being met and everyone's being safe. Backing and flanking fire are the main ignitions used, and then we will follow up with head fire when we're wrapping up the unit and it's safe to do so. Okay, so once ignitions are complete, the final piece of ensuring a safe and controlled prescribed fire involves all the personnel on hand, including the ignitions and holding crew, to patrol the prescribed fire perimeter and perform mop-up into the afternoon and evening. Mop-up involves the use of hand tools and fire engines using hoses and water to extinguish hot spots and residual flames where needed, such as along the control lines. Fire personnel may remain on the prescribed fire into the evening when nighttime weather smothers the fire naturally. So for monitoring and also continued mop-up, you should be checking on your fire the next day while you're out there looking for hot spots and seeing where the smokes are for your continued mop-up. While you're out there, also take a look at your first order fire effects. First order fire effects are the effects that you see immediately after a burn. So this is like the fuels that were actually reduced on the ground. Did these initial fire effects meet your objectives? Return later, 6 months, a year down the road. Check on your second order fire effects. These are going to be things like your regeneration. Did these meet your objectives? And then update your objectives as needed for future burning. It's all about adapting. All right. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
We've got a couple minutes for questions here, so folks got something. We got one here if you want to go ahead.
So how flexible are these routes? Like if your weather isn't optimal for the drive burn, you know, are they planning on coming the next day? Is that like they may have to schedule weeks away? Do they kind of plan for a few days or?
It depends, and it's really important to look at your weather because it all comes down to your, you know, your forecast. Is it looking, you might, and lots of our windows for burning seem to be clustered. So we'll have days where it's like 3-4 days in a row, it looks good for burning, and then it could be a complete bomb the next week. But I mean, these crews, it really depends. You know, we're all fighting for resources all the time. So if they're there and say you have a test fire and it doesn't look good and this crew is free, you know, they might just be going back to their normal day jobs. We don't have a lot of just like seasonal crews bouncing around doing this work right now, but that is something we're trying to change.
Also doesn't necessarily depend like, if he wants to. But, people will be like, yeah, no, this isn't gonna happen, but then others will be like, it doesn't necessarily have to fully envelop the unit. It can be
Mm-hmm.
as long as the
Yeah, and that brings you back to when you do that, you're going to get that mosaic burn, which is a more natural burn. You know, you don't need to go out there and make 100% of your burn unit black. Let it move. It's going to move where it's going to burn naturally. And then those gaps that you're leaving that aren't getting burned are going to be that wildlife refuge as well. So if you burn your area and you're done, you're like, oh, I got a little green spot back in there. We're not in suppression. You don't need to go back out there and fill it in with black. You know, we're doing this for conservation and wildlife habitat. So just let it be, unless it's a threat to the line. There's no point in really doing it.
The only thing I'd add to that is you want to make sure when you're doing your burn, you're gonna reach your objective. To go out there and do a burn and waste all the fuel and not meet your objectives, you're not doing yourself in favor. So if you do a test burn and it doesn't look like it's gonna meet your objective, that's a good opportunity to kind of drop and maybe good process. What about, the proximity of an airport?
Yes, I would defer to Gabe Cahalan and Chase because they actually have to deal with that on a regular basis, burning at Nassawongo Creek and Salisbury Airport.
Notification, right? It's really important to notify your neighbors, whether that's, you know, your neighbor next door in your neighborhood or Salisbury Airport. Those are notifications that once you're burning next to these, you know, sensitive areas that you have to make, there has to be communication there. So, for instance, for us, we have property adjacent to Salisbury Airport, and we're notifying them the morning of, or in some cases, the day before that we're burning that day. And then we're making sure that our smoke for the day isn't going to be impacting the airport. So, you know, good preparation, good notifications, like building relationships with, you know, these types of people are really important to make sure that, you know, your burns are successful. All right, we got time for one more.
Just for the people that don't know, maybe explain them the legal ramifications of not notifying being raised to a burn.
Yeah, and again, it could be a little different everywhere, but that's very important. If you don't have your permit and you are not making your notifications that you're burning, that could jeopardize potentially burning in the future. You know, it really depends on your regulatory agency, but that is a big no-no for sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, well, we need to move on to our next presentation. So thank you, Natasha.